Hello there everybody, Martin here from Affinity for Commander. Yes, I am back after a hiatus of making gameplay videos with a game consisting of 4 lots of partner commanders for you to enjoy. So without further ado, let's take a look at those opening hands. I am playing my Akiri Line-Slinger and Ardenn Intrepid Archaeologist equipment deck. I keep an opening hand containing Boros Signet, Boros Garrison, Forgotten Cave, 3 plains and a mountain.
I am playing my Frodo Adventurous Hobbit and Sam Loyal Attendant Life Gain deck. I keep a starting hand consisting of Mox Amber, Arcane Signet, Cultivate, Harmonize, Brushland, The Dead Marshes, and a Plains.
Sam is playing his Tymna the Weaver and Sidar Kondo of Jamora Hate Bears deck. He keeps an opening hand of Llanowar Elves, Boromir Warden of the Tower, Mythos of Nithori, Sword of Feast and Famine, Odric Master Tactician, Blooming Marsh and Mana Confluence.
And finally, Thomas is playing the 10th Doctor and Rose Tyler Time Counter Manipulation deck. He gives a starting hand including Arcane Signet, Chaos Warp, Rhystic Study, the 11th Doctor, Wedding Ring, Path of Ancestry and Temple of Enlightenment. Sam starts the game off by playing a Blooming Marsh, which he taps to cast Llanowar Elves before passing to Thomas.
In his turn, Thomas plays Temple of Enlightenment. He squares the top card of his library to the bottom and passes.
I play Brushland and take 1 damage to the Pain Land to cast Frodo Sauron's Bane. Unable to do anything else, I end my turn.
I play a mountain and pass to Sam.
Sam begins his turn by playing Sungrass Prairie, and then taps all of his permanents to cast 1 of his commanders, Tymna the Weaver. Racing ahead of the rest of us, Sam passes the turn.
Thomas plays Thespian Stage and casts Arcane Signet before ending his turn.
I start my turn by playing The Dead Marshes, providing the gift of swamps to the rest of the table.
2 of us aren't even playing black.
Stop being so ungrateful. Next, I cast Mox Amber, closely followed by Arcane Signet. Not yet finished, I cast one of my commanders, Frodo Adventurous Hobbit, and move to combat. Here I attack Martin with my original Frodo, dealing him 1 damage, and pass to him. Martin responds by cycling Forgotten Cave, and proceeds to his turn.
In my turn, I play a plains and cast my first commander, Akiri Line-Slinger. Out of mana, I pass the turn.
Sam plays Mana Confluence as his land for turn, and tapping it for a black thanks to the Dead Marshes, he casts his other commander, Sidar Kondo of Jamora. Moving to combat, Sam attacks me with Tymna, dealing me 2 damage and gaining 2 life from her lifelink. In his second main phase, Sam pays 1 life to Tymna's ability, drawing a card. With nothing more to do, he ends his turn.
Thomas begins his turn by playing Path of Ancestry, and then casts Rhystic Study. Everybody else boos, and Thomas passes to Alex.
I play a Plains and cast my second commander, Sam Loyal Attendant. I choose not to pay an additional mana for Rhystic Study, letting Thomas draw, and then move to combat. Here I create a food token with Sam's ability, which I immediately sacrifice, gaining 3 life. Next I attack Sam with my multicoloured Frodo, and the ring tempts me. I choose the attacking Frodo as my ring bearer, and unable to block, Sam takes a single point of damage. Happy with my board state, I pass the turn.
In my turn, I play another plains and cast Boros Signet. Thomas draws from his study, and I cast Spirit Mantle. Thomas draws once again, and I enchant Akiri with my aura. Moving to combat, I attack Thomas with my commander, dealing him 2 damage, and end my turn.
Sam plays Case of Kolyos and pays 1 life to his mana base in order to cast Sword of Feast and Famine. Thomas draws a card, and Sam equips his sword to Tymna before moving to combat. Here he attacks Thomas with Tymna and me with Sidar Kondo. Thomas takes 4, I take 2, and Sam gains 4. Thomas discards a card with the sword's trigger, and Sam untaps all of his lands before paying 2 life to draw 2 cards. In his post-combat main phase, he casts Dauntless Dismantler, making Martin shiver, and Thomas draws a card.
He sure is getting a lot of value out of that Rhystic Study.
Now, the clear threat at the table, Sam passes to Thomas.
Thomas starts his turn by proposing to Sam with wedding ring.
Aww.
Sam says I do, creating a copy of the artifact, and Thomas passes the turn.
I always cry at weddings. In my turn, I play a swamp and cast Cultivate. I pay the Ristic Study tax and then search my library for 2 forests. I put one into play tapped, the other into my hand, and activate my 1 mana Frodo's ability. This changes Frodo into a 2/3 halfling scout with lifelink, and I then move to combat. Here I make a tapped food token and attack Sam with all 3 of my hobbits. Sam the player blocks Sam the creature with his dismantler, taking 3 damage from the 2 attacking Frodos.
Well, that's not confusing at all, is it?
I gain 2 life and out of mana, end my turn.
I begin my turn by playing a Plains and cast Single Combat. Thomas draws a card, and every creature other than Akiri, Tymna and the Commander Frodo are sacrificed. Moving to combat, I once again attack Thomas with Akiri, dealing him 2 damage, and pass the turn to Sam.
Sam draws for turn, and Thomas draws from his wedding ring. Sam then plays Hushwood Verge and casts Mythos of Nethroli. He destroys Spirit Mantle in this way, and Thomas once again draws thanks to Ristic Study. Moving to combat, Sam attacks me with Tymna, dealing me 4 damage and gaining 4 life. Thomas also gains 4 life due to Wedding Ring, and I discard a card as Sam untaps his lands. Sam moves to his second main phase where he pays 1 life to draw a card with Tymna's ability. Thomas also draws, and unable to cast creatures thanks to single combat, Sam ends his turn.
Thomas draws, Sam draws, and Thomas plays Prairie Stream. Thomas then moves to his end step without casting anything, and Sam responds by casting Cosmic Rebirth. Thomas chooses not to draw from his Ristic Study, given that he already has 11 cards in hand, and Sam returns his Dauntless Dismantler to the battlefield before gaining 3 life. Thomas discards down to 7 and passes to Alex.
I start my turn by casting Sanguine Bond, and Thomas draws a card. Next, I sacrifice my food, gaining 3 life and having Sam lose 3 thanks to my bond. Moving to combat, I attack Sam with my commander and the ring tempts me. Sam blocks my hobbit with his Artificer, resulting in both creatures surviving a skirmish, and I pass the turn.
I cast Blackblade Reforged, which Sam kindly reminds me enters tapped. Thomas draws for his study, and I play Terramorphic Expanse. I immediately sacrifice the Expanse, searching my library for a mountain and putting it into play tapped. Not yet finished, I equip my tapped Blackblade to Akiri and move to combat. Here I attack Sam with my 7-powered core, and he blocks them with Dauntless Dismantler. With nothing more to do, I end my turn.
Sam draws, Thomas draws, and Sam plays a Llanowar Waste as his land for turn. Next, Sam takes 1 damage from his caves to cast Boromir, Warden of the Tower, and Thomas draws a card. Sam then pays a life to Mana Confluence to cast Enduring Innocence, once again letting Thomas draw a card. Moving to combat, Sam attacks Thomas with Tymna, to which Thomas responds by casting Serum Snare. He returns the Weaver to Sam's hand, ignoring the Proliferate trigger due to a lack of counters on the board, and Sam passes to Thomas. Thomas responds to this by casting Chaos Warp, shuffling my Sanguine Bond into my deck and replacing it with Birds of Paradise.
A reasonable trade if I do say so.
With no further interruptions, Thomas moves to his turn.
In his turn, Thomas draws, and therefore so does Sam. Next, Thomas plays a mountain and casts one of his commanders, Rose Tyler.
Best companion.
He scries 1 thanks to Path of Ancestry, keeps the top card of his library where it is, and discards down to 7 before passing.
I begin my turn by casting Treebeard, Gracious Host, paying the 1 for Ristic Study. I create 2 food tokens as he enters, and immediately sacrifice one of these to gain 3 life. I put 3 +1/+1 counters on Treebeard, and move to combat, where I once again attack Sam with Frodo. The ring tempts me, and I draw and discard as a result. I then draw another card thanks to Frodo's ability, and Sam declares no blockers, taking 1 damage. With nothing more to do, I end my turn.
I play a mountain as my land for turn, and then cast Stoneforge Mystic. I pay an additional mana for Rhystic Study and search my library for Shadow Spear, putting the equipment into my hand. I cast the Spear, once again paying for the Rhystic Study, and equip the artifact to Akiri. Moving to combat, I attack Alex with my 10-powered commander, and he declares no blocks.
Ow.
He takes 10 damage, I gain 10 life, and I pass to Sam.
Sam and Thomas both draw, and Sam plays a swamp. He then equips his Sword of Feast and Famine to his sheep, and recasts Tymna. Thomas draws from his Rhystic Study, Sam draws from Enduring Innocence's ability, and Thomas draws once more.
These two really need to calm down their card drawing.
Not yet finished, Sam casts Outland Liberator, once again letting Thomas draw a card.
Stop!
Moving to combat, Sam attacks me with Innocence and Thomas with Boromir. I am unable to block and Thomas decides not to, resulting in us taking 4 and 3 damage respectively. Sam gains 4 life due to his sheep's life link, Thomas also gains 4 thanks to Wedding Ring, and Sam untaps all of his lands. I discard a card, and Sam moves to his second main phase. Here he pays 2 life to Tymna's ability, drawing 2 cards, and Thomas draws 2 cards as well.
Seriously now, Sam, stop letting Thomas draw cards. It's getting out of hand.
Not yet finished, Sam casts Welcoming Vampire, letting Thomas draw from his Rhystic Study. He then pays a life to Mana Confluence to cast Lauren of the Third Path, and Thomas draws what feels like his billionth card of the game. Sam destroys Shadow Spear with Lauren's ETB trigger, and draws a card with Welcoming Vampire. Thomas draws, again, and Sam passes the turn.
Thomas draws, Sam draws, and Thomas plays Command Tower. Next Thomas casts Soul Ring, followed by Thought Vessel, followed by As Foretold. Now able to keep all the cards he drew in Sam's turn, Thomas ends his turn.
I start my turn by playing a forest and then sacrifice a food to gain 3 life. I put 3 +1/+1 counters on Treebeard and move into combat to continue my tradition of attacking Sam with Frodo. The ring tempts me, I draw and discard from the ring and then draw an additional card thanks to Frodo. Unable to block my pesky hobbit, Sam takes 1, and then Sam, Thomas and Martin each lose 3 life to the ring. In my post-combat main phase, I cast Harmonize, choosing not to pay for Rhystic Study. Thomas draws a card, I draw 3 cards, and with nothing more to do, I pass to Martin.
In my turn I cast Astor, Bearer of Blades, allowing Thomas to draw a card as I do so. I look at the top 7 cards of my library, putting Sword of War and Peace into my hand, and then cast it. Thomas draws once more, which I am totally okay with at this point, and equip the sword to Akiri. Not yet finished, I play Boros Garrison, returning a mountain to my hand with the land's ETB. Moving to combat, I attack Thomas with Akiri, and Thomas responds by casting Ether Eyes. Akiri is returned to my hand, and I pass the turn.
Sam draws for turn, Thomas draws from Wedding Ring, and Sam pays 1 life to Mana Confluence to cast Esper Sentinel. Thomas draws a card, Sam draws 2 cards, and Thomas draws a further 2.
He'll be decking out soon at this rate.
Not yet finished, Sam casts Kambal, Profiteering Mayor. Thomas draws again, and Sam casts Scrib Sprite.
Huh, never seen that card before.
Thomas draws, and Sam casts Elves of Deep Shadow. Thomas draws from his Rhystic Study, and Sam moves to combat. Here he attacks me with Enduring Innocence, Martin with Welcoming Vampire, and Thomas with Boromir. Not liking this, I respond by casting Beast Within, targeting Sword of Feast and Famine. I am unable to pay for the Esper Sentinel trigger, allowing Sam to draw, and Thomas draws 2, 1 from his ring and 1 from Rhystic Study. The sword is then destroyed, and Sam makes a 3/3 beast token as compensation for his loss. Martin, Thomas and I lose a life, Sam gains a life thanks to Kambal, and Thomas then regains a life due to Wedding Ring. Combat then continues, and I block Sam's sheep with Treebeard. The Glimmer is destroyed, returning to the battlefield as an enchantment. Martin takes 2 and Thomas takes 3. Sam gains 2 thanks to his sheep's life link, and Thomas gains 2 as a result of his ring. In his second main phase, Sam pays 2 life to Tymna to draw 2 cards, and Thomas draws 2 cards as well. Sam then plays the Shire as his land for turn, discards down to 7, and ends his turn.
Thomas chooses not to cast a spell with As Foretold, given that Sam could just counter it with Boromir, and instead draws for turn. Sam draws as well, and Thomas casts Lightning Greaves. Sam draws from his Sentinel, and Thomas casts Mind Stone.
RIP handles the Cyberman.
With most of his deck in his hand, Tom passes to Alex.
I begin my turn by playing Woodland Cemetery and then move to combat. Here I attack Sam with Frodo and Treebeard, drawing and discarding as I do so. Sam declares no blocks, taking 7 damage, and Thomas, Martin and Sam each take 3 thanks to the ring. In my post-combat main phase I cast Prosperous Innkeeper. Thomas draws a card and I create a treasure token as my halfling enters the battlefield. Cannonball triggers, creating a tapped treasure token for Sam and gaining Sam a life. Everyone other than Sam then loses a life, and I cast Eternal Witness. Thomas draws, I gain a life from my Innkeeper, and I return the Beast Within in my graveyard to my hand. This life gain triggers Treebeard's ability, and I put a +1/+1 counter on him before passing the turn.
In my turn, Sam asks if I want to be friends, offering to let me draw a card with Loran in exchange for not attacking him. I agree to his terms and conditions, and Sam activates his Artificer's ability. Both Sam and I draw a card, and I play Sunhome, Fortress of the Legion. Next I equip both of my swords to Astor, and then move to combat. Here I attack Thomas with my warrior, and he responds by casting an overloaded Cyclonic Rift.
For Urza's sake, Tom.
Sam draws a card thanks to Esper Sentinel and sacrifices his Outlast Liberator to destroy Thomas's Thought Vessel. With the Rift still in the stack, Alex casts Beast Within. He destroys Boromir in this way, creating Sam a Beast token. Sam gains a life and the rest of us lose a life thanks to Kumbal, and Cyclonic Rift then finally resolves. Sam, Alex and I each return all of our non-land permanents to our hands, and I move to my post-combat main phase. Here I cast Soul Ring, recast Boros Signet, and recast the store. Thomas draws 3 cards from Mystic Study, and I look at the top 7 cards of my library. I put the Loxodon Warhammer from among them into my hand, and recast Stoneforge Mystic. Thomas draws once more, and I search my library for Conqueror's Flail before putting it into my hand. Not yet finished, I recast Akiri, letting Thomas draw a card as I do so. Finally out of mana, I end my turn.
Sam plays a Plains and recasts Enduring Innocence. Thomas draws, and Sam recasts Welcoming Vampire, causing Thomas to draw again. Sam then draws from his Innocence and recasts Lorna the Third Path. He destroys Rhystic Study with her ETB trigger, but not before Thomas draws one last card thanks to Sam not paying the tax.
Better late than never, I suppose.
Sam draws as a result of Welcoming Vampire's ability, discards down to 7, and passes to Thomas.
Thomas starts his turn by putting a time counter on As Foretold, and plays a Plains as his land for turn. Next he casts the Reaver Cleaver, giving me serious equipment envy, and equips both the Cleaver and his Greaves to Rose Tyler. Not yet finished, Thomas casts Rotating Fireplace, and suspends Ecstatic Beauty.
Right in the feels.
Still not finished, Thomas casts Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey, adding a time counter to As Foretold and Rotating Fireplace. He also removes a counter from Ecstatic Beauty, and then moves to combat for the first time this entire game. Thomas attacks Alex with Rose, putting 3 time counters on her with her Bad Wolf ability. Unable to block, Alex takes 6 damage, and Thomas creates 6 treasure tokens thanks to his Cleaver. In his second main phase, Thomas uses 3 of these treasures to cast the Pandorica, and discards down to 7 before passing the turn.
I play Shire Terrace and recast Prosperous Innkeeper. I create a treasure as they enter, and lose a life to create a white mana with Brushland. I use mana to help recast Frodo, Adventurous Hobbit, with my Innkeeper gaining me a life as he enters. Next I recast Mox Amber, followed by Arcane Signet. I recast Treebeard, gaining a life as he enters, and create 2 food tokens with the Ents ETB. I put a +1/+1 counter on Treebeard given that he witnessed me gaining a life, and end my turn. Thomas responds to this by casting Clock Spinning for free using As Foretold, paying for the spell's buyback cost. He removes a time counter from Ecstatic Beauty in this way, and Martin proceeds to his turn.
In my turn, I play a mountain and cast Conqueror's Flail. I immediately equip the flail to Akiri, stopping my opponents from casting spells in my turn, and recast Sword of War and Peace. Next I recast Blackblade Reforged and equip both swords to my commander. Not yet finished, I activate Stoneforge Mystic's ability, putting Embercleave onto the battlefield from my hand.
Stop.
I equip it to Akiri with its own ability, and Sam points out that this would immediately fall off due to my commander having protection from red.
Ha.
We all have a good laugh at my counterintuitive play, and I forget to actually move the fiery sword off Akiri. Don't worry though, I remember not to count it in my combat calculations. Speaking of which, I then move to combat where I attack Thomas with my 18 powered sword and flail wielding Line-Slinger. Unable to block or cast spells, Thomas takes a lethal dose of commander damage, knocking him out of the game. I gain 2 life from Sword of War and Peace, and have one less opponent in the game, I pass to Sam.
Sam begins his turn by casting Insidious Fungus, a creature capable of blocking Akiri, and draws 2 cards. Next he casts Samwise Gamgee, realises that he should have cast those creatures the other way around, and casts Barb Servitor. Samwise creates a food, and Sam activates Lauren's ability, allowing Martin and himself to draw. Having not dealt with Akiri, Sam passes the turn.
Alex starts his turn by casting Fell the Mighty, destroying all creatures with power greater than 1. Sam responds to this by casting Dawn's Truce, gifting me a card in order to give his permanents indestructible until the end of turn. Alex's board wipe then resolves, with Akiri and Asta being destroyed, and Alex casts Birds of Paradise. He gains a life from his Innkeeper, and Treebeard gains a +1/+1 counter from the life gain.
Synergy.
Not yet finished, Alex sacrifices a food to gain 3 life, putting another 3 +1/+1 counters on his Ent. He then moves to combat where he attacks me with Frodo, dealing me 1 damage. Alex then draws and discards, and Sam and I each lose 3 life to the ring. Happy with his plays, Alex ends his turn.
Martin plays Buried Ruin and casts Commander's Plate. Next he casts his second commander, Ardenn Intrepid Archaeologist, closely followed by Loxodon Warhammer. Still not finished, Martin casts Halvar, God of Battle, and then moves to combat. I respond to this by taking 1 damage from Brushland in order to cast Swords to Plowshares, exiling Ardenn.
Rude.
Martin gains 2 life and moves to combat where he attaches Sword of War and Peace to his Stoneforge Mystic with Halvar's ability. He then attacks me with the Mystic and I block her with Birds of Paradise. In his post-combat main phase, Martin attaches Conqueror's Flail to Halvar and passes to Sam.
In his turn, Sam plays a forest and casts Eternal Witness. He makes a food of Samwise and draws 2 cards due to his Sheep and Vampire. Sam returns the Sword of Feast and Famine in his graveyard to his hand with the Witness's ability, casts the sword and equips it to Welcoming Vampire. Moving to combat, he attacks me with his Vampire and Servitor. Unable to block either creature due to their Flang and Menace keywords, I take 5 damage. I discard the only card in my hand due to Sword of Feast and Famine, and Sam untaps all of his lands. Sam then draws a card and loses a life due to Barbed Servitor before moving to his second main phase. Here he casts Extraction Specialist, creating a food, and targets the Outland Liberator in his graveyard with their ETB. Alex responds to this by casting Crypt Incursion, targeting Sam's graveyard. Sam responds to this by activating Samwise's second ability, sacrificing 3 food tokens in order to return Odric Master Tactician from his graveyard to his hand. Crypt Incursion then resolves, exiling 11 creatures from Sam's graveyard. Alex gains 33 life in this way, puts 33 +1/+1 counters on Treebeard, and Extraction Specialist's ability fizzles without a target.
Oh yeah.
Not to be deterred, Sam casts Quasali Pride Mage, creating a food token when it enters. Next, Sam takes 1 damage from Caves of Kolios to cast Odric Master Tactician. He creates another food and passes.
I play Plains and move to combat. Here I attack Martin with Treebeard and Frodo, drawing and then drawing and discarding with Frodo and the Ring's abilities. He blocks my End with Halvar, but unfortunately for him this isn't enough to save him. His life total is reduced to 0 under the End's mighty foot. Sam then loses 3 life to the Ring's ability, and I move to my second main phase. Here I cast Aetherflux Reservoir, which Sam is unable to respond to. I then pay 50 life to deal 50 damage to Sam, winning me the game, and cementing Frodo and Sam as the best couple in all the multiverse.
Well, that is it for another game. I do hope that you enjoyed it. I'd like to give a huge thank you to each and every one of our incredible patrons, without whom we'd be unable to continue making videos such as this. Also, be sure to check out our affiliate links in the video description. It won't cost you anything extra to make your purchases through these, but it really helps out the channel a lot. And finally, don't forget that you can help to support the channel in 4 quick and easy ways: liking this video, subscribing, hitting that bell icon, and leaving us a comment. I read everyone. That's it for now though, we'll see you next time. Stay awesome!